So before we get stuck into looking at some of the output, just maybe a couple of words of advice in terms of processing. So we've processed one file, but let's say we've got a lot of files to process and could actually get into the hundreds or even thousands. It's probably easier to manage this process if we do them in batches. So this is our core setup for GGIR, but what I would often do is maybe create some additional folders. So we might call this something like this, maybe. So I want all my raw files in batch 1, whether that might be a batch of 20 or 50 or whatever, to go into there. And then maybe once they've been processed through GGIR, I want another folder. So what I'll be doing is I'll have maybe a bunch of folders in here, raw files to be processed. I'll copy them into the test folder, which is what GGIR wants to look at in order to do the processing. Then we get all our results from that, and then we maybe copy them out of there into this folder so we can keep a nice tidy record of what we've been doing and highlight any issues along the way. So maybe we've got some corrupt files, we can identify those if they're not been processed and maybe create a subfolder within this one and then do some further investigation after the fact. This is probably a more efficient way of managing the process in some ways, because you can keep tabs on things rather than trying to process every single file in your data set, particularly when you've got a lot of files in there. Okay, so just for the moment then, I haven't showed you that. We'll just zap those files. So we've just in the previous video generated our results for GGIR. Okay, so part 2 is physical activity, part 4 is sleep, part 5 is combined sleep and physical activity. And you get 2 CSV files. One is the day-by-day summary, so that's pretty self-explanatory, and one is just the overall summary at the participant level. Okay, and you get that for both activity, sleep, and the combined. Notice for part 5 as well, there are 2 lots of files. is based upon the 24-hour day being calculated from midnight to midnight, and then this WW is a 24-hour day calculated from waking hours to waking hours. So the data will be slightly different in terms of the output depending on what your preferences are there. So we're going to open this one here, so day summary for physical activity. So we want to open it in Excel. So we've got, so these files are very long in the sense that they've got a lot of variables spanning across the width of the file. And what you'll also notice is that the variable headers aren't always very self-explanatory. Okay, but so I'm not going to go through all of this by any stretch, just pull out a couple of key points. Make that bigger. So we've got some information here about number of valid hours in the day. Okay, number of hours worn, this is a weekday, and then we get this measurement day, and then we get straight away stuck into the variables. So where it's got 0 to 24 hours, this represents the recording windows which we specified. And typically, if we wanted 0 to 24 hours, these are the variables or the output that we would actually use. And now I just flagged that up because as we go along, we might find some slightly different output. It might be in this file or the general summary file. I'm just scrolling along. Okay, no, it's just this one. Okay, that's good. So it means it's cleaner to look at this file. So if you're interested in day-by-day summary of the data, then you've got it in this file. Now, if we had multiple participants, then it would just stack them on top of one another all the way down. Okay, so typically we want to do our analysis based upon participant level data, so we need to either have some code to generate that or to set up some pivot tables. So we've got days of the week as columns and the various variables that we're interested in, and we've got participant as rows. So there's a lot of data in here, so I'm not going to go through what each one actually represents, but that's what we specified in our GGIR part 2. If we look at the just a summary, not the day summary file, now obviously we've just got one line here because it's not doing it by day, so it has some slightly different variable headers here. So this tells us about number of days worn. This is also relating to wear time. But this is what I was referring to earlier. So the first lot of variables here are, it says this is NMO, or the signal vector magnitude, or average acceleration. This says full recording mean. So this is from the time when the monitor was initialized, when it was downloaded. And we're not necessarily interested in this because it's going to give some data that isn't part of our recorded protocol. So full recording mean, we probably don't want those values. So I'm going to get to the point, here we go, where we've got 0 to 24 hours, because that's the window that we're interested in. So I disregard all of this and I'll get straight into these variables here. So just keep an eye open for that. AD is what we're interested in, so that's kind of the average day over the recording period, which was a week, and so these really are the averages which would correspond to these data here over the number of valid days. Okay, so if you're not interested in day by day stuff, then it's probably quicker for you and cleaner to use a summary file. Okay. Just check on that you've got all the data that you actually need, or all the variables that you need in the summary file, just in case it's not perhaps giving you what you want, but that might be in the day by day. So AD goes across, so we're still on AD, yes we are, no, it's gone to full recording there. So it doesn't necessarily give you, so full recording pops up again here, so that's a bit annoying because then you've got to find it. And so I would typically copy these out into another worksheet, get rid of the stuff which we don't need, or hide them. This is what I want to get to here. So we've got here now WE days, that's weekend days. WK days is weekdays. So it's then going to give us the same variables by weekday and weekend day and so on. So this is a very, very long data sheet, as you can see. Let's just close these off. Sleep, very briefly. This is just the overall summary for sleep. So the sleep metrics are generated based on different parameters depending on what you're interested in. So these are number of nights here. So look at the GGIR manual for which sleep parameters that you're interested in. So you've got sleep duration here. On average, this is in hours. Okay, but it will calculate slightly different metrics depending on what you're interested in. These are timings, sleep onset, that's that's time, wake up time, and it'll give you that, I think, in slightly easy to understand variable format. This is always a subtraction for the previous 24 hours, at 31. So you need to just play about with what you really want from here, but it gives us some other data around sleep efficiency and so on. So decide based upon the GGIR manual which sleep metrics that you want to use and which are most appropriate for your study, and maybe refer to the Van Hees paper from 2018 for advice on that. And then here's a person summary for part 5. Okay, I'll just make this bigger. So just to demonstrate here, we've got sleep. Yeah, we've got our sleep data first of all for this person. Sleep onset, yeah, wake time. Then it's straight into some of the physical activity data here. Again, the order isn't always necessarily that logical, and we've got, as I said earlier in the earlier video, we've got fewer metrics or variables in this part 5 output than, for example, part 2, which is just physical activity, and similarly for part 4, which is just sleep. So this is if you like, the summary of both activity and sleep. But if you want some specific variables which are not here, you're going to have to look at part 2 or part 4 or both together and then merge them together. And again, very comprehensive data sheet in terms of what is being spilled out here. Just the last thing to mention is we've got this file here called config.csv, and this is a summary of the instructions or the arguments in the GGIR shell function. So in terms of comparability and open data, always useful to make this file available in your publications, because others can directly replicate your processing in GGIR. So useful to know what that file is for and to keep it saved in a safe place for when you've done your final analysis ahead of publication. Okay, I'll leave it there. Hopefully those little videos have given you a nice little whistle stop to then go and have a proper play around with GGIR, and hopefully you can see what a great resource it is for us.